On March 2nd, 2026, Emmanuel Macron walked into a nuclear submarine base, stood next to a ballistic missile submarine, and told 8 European countries something nobody expected to hear from a French president. To be free, one needs to be feared. Then he announced France was expanding its nuclear arsenal for the first time in over 30 years. And the week before that, he told Donald Trump no. Trump had asked France for overflight rights to move military aircraft toward the Middle East. France, a NATO ally, not a rival, said absolutely not. Trump called them out publicly. Macron didn't blink. The Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier, nuclear-powered, fully loaded with Rafale fighters, was already heading to the eastern Mediterranean on France's own orders, for France's own reasons. Let that sink in for a second. Europe's supposed political lightweight just refused the United States president, expanded its nuclear arsenal for the first time in 30 years, moved its carrier battle group into an active war zone, independently, no NATO consultation, and signed a deal to sell Ukraine 100 fighter jets, all in the same month. And you're still thinking about France as the country that makes cheese and goes on strike every 6 weeks. We need to have a conversation. Partly that's a cultural thing. France has spent decades being funnier to mock than to analyze. The strikes, the politics, the 4-hour lunch breaks, the deep philosophical certainty that French culture is civilization's crowning achievement, and everyone else is just working on it. Fair enough, it's a good bit. But underneath the baguette jokes lives something most analysts genuinely underestimate: a full-spectrum military, nuclear deterrent, blue water navy, combat-tested troops abroad, and a defense budget in 2026 sitting at 57 billion euros, with a stated target of 100 billion euros per year before the decade is out. That's not a supporting actor. That's a country rebuilding itself into something dangerous, and the world is starting to notice whether it wants to or not. Start at the ground level, because the army is where France does something almost no other country in the world manages to pull off. The French army fields around 118,000 active personnel. That doesn't sound enormous until you realize those soldiers are structured for real deployments, not parade ground ceremonies. The centerpiece of French ground power right now is the Leclerc XLR, a third-generation main battle tank that went on public display for the first time at the Bastille Day Parade in July 2025. The original Leclerc had its critics. Fast, yes. Capable, yes, but under-battled compared to the Abrams or Leopard 2. The XLR changes the conversation. It carries IED jammers, modular composite armor on the hull and turret, anti-drone cage protection, and a digital battle management system that lets it share real-time targeting data with Griffin armored vehicles, Jaguar reconnaissance platforms, and Serval light carriers, all simultaneously. France ordered 200 upgrades with 160 completed by 2030. What that means practically is France is building a networked ground force, not just a collection of individual tanks, but hardware only explains part of France's ground advantage. Now, the part most people completely skip past: the Foreign Legion. If you're only vaguely familiar with the French Foreign Legion, here's the short version. It's a military unit that recruits from outside France, attracts soldiers from over 140 nationalities, and produces some of the most capable infantry in the Western world. In 2026, Legionnaires are deploying on NATO missions in Estonia, peacekeeping in Lebanon, and rotating through French bases in Djibouti. They've replaced their old FAMAS rifles with HK-416F carbines, ditched the Milan anti-tank missiles for the new Acheron MP precision-guided system, and started integrating drones into standard patrol procedures. The Foreign Legion is genuinely one of the strangest and most effective military institutions on Earth. Recruits change their names when they join. They can apply for French citizenship after 3 years. The only British officer in the Legion's history just retired at the end of 2025 after 37 years of service. 37 years in the French Foreign Legion. Some people really commit to the bit. The French Air Force operates roughly 600 aircraft across all categories. That includes trainers, transports, support platforms, and the thing that makes France genuinely dangerous at range, the Rafale. The Rafale handles everything from dogfights to nuclear delivery, and it launches off aircraft carriers. The jet operates with active electronically scanned array radar, infrared search and track targeting, and weapons compatibility that stretches from short-range dogfight missiles to Scalp EG cruise missiles with 500-kilometer range. Here is the part that matters geopolitically. France doesn't buy American fighters. Britain flies F-35s. Italy flies F-35s. Germany flies F-35s. France flies Rafales. Entirely domestically designed, produced, and upgraded by Dassault Aviation. That's not stubbornness. That's strategy. Because flying an American aircraft means depending on American software updates, American spare parts, and American goodwill. France specifically designed its Air Force so it never has to ask Washington for permission to go to war. And the Rafale cells. India operates them. Greece operates them. Croatia bought them. And in one of the stranger geopolitical footnotes of recent years, Serbia, officially aligned with Russia, is also buying them. Egypt, Qatar, Indonesia, the UAE. Dassault has 233 jets still on order as of late 2025 and is trying to ramp production to 4 per month. Ukraine wants 100. The Indian Air Force flew Rafales in combat against Pakistan in May 2025 in what multiple analysts called the largest aerial engagement of the modern era. One Rafale went down. The Indian Air Force didn't dwell on it. They flew over 200 sorties in 2 days and called it a validation. Dassault is currently backlogged on orders. There's also the nuclear dimension of the Rafale fleet worth pausing on. The aircraft carries the ASMPA, an air-launched nuclear cruise missile. France maintains a dual nuclear strike capability, submarine-launched ballistic missiles for the strategic deterrent, and Rafales carrying air-launched nuclear weapons as the second leg. Most countries have one nuclear delivery method. France built 2 deliberately, so that even if you somehow neutralize one system, the other still works. That's not paranoia, that's doctrine. Here's the one that truly separates France from every other country in Europe. Nuclear aircraft carrier. The Charles de Gaulle R-91 is the only nuclear-powered aircraft carrier on Earth, operated by anyone other than the United States Navy. Full stop, not close, not comparable. That's it. 2 countries on the planet operate nuclear carriers at sea. One is America, one is France. The ship displaces 42,500 tons fully loaded and runs on twin K-15 pressurized water reactors that give it essentially unlimited range. The only constraint on how long it stays at sea is food and maintenance, not fuel. It uses a Catabar catapult launch system, the same family of technology on American carriers, which means it can launch Rafale M fighters at full combat weight with complete fuel and weapons loads. Britain's carriers use ski jump ramps and can't do that. Italy's carriers can't do that. France can. The Air Wing runs Rafale M fighters, E-2C Hawkeye early warning aircraft, and anti-submarine helicopters. The ship carries Aster surface-to-air missiles for self-defense and links into France's broader carrier strike group, which includes frigates and at least one Barracuda-class nuclear attack submarine operating somewhere below the surface. That last part, the submarine, is deliberate. The Charles de Gaulle never travels alone, and you never know exactly what's underneath it. In March 2026, Macron redirected the carrier to the eastern Mediterranean after drone attacks targeted French personnel at the Al Salam naval base in Abu Dhabi. The carrier had been running exercises in the North Atlantic as part of Mission Lafayette 26. It turned south immediately. No consultation with NATO, no request for permission. France moved its carrier battle group into an active conflict zone because France decided to. That is what strategic autonomy actually looks like when you execute it. The Charles de Gaulle will retire in 2038. Its replacement is already named. France Libre, Free France, a deliberate reference to the World War II resistance government. The new carrier will displace 75,000 tons, nearly double the current ship. 3 electromagnetic launch catapults, 2 nuclear reactors of a new K-22 design, space for 30 combat aircraft plus unmanned systems. Total program cost, around 10.25 billion euros. Construction starts 2031, operational in 2038. The largest warship ever built in Europe. Macron announced the name personally on March 18th, standing in front of cameras at a naval base, naming a warship after the French resistance. Because of course he did. The man has a flair for the theatrical, and frankly, on this one, it's earned. France's submarine fleet is worth its own section because it's the foundation everything else rests on. The Marine Nationale operates 6 nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, SSBNs, under the Force Océanique Stratégique. These submarines carry France's primary nuclear deterrent. At any given moment, at least one is on continuous patrol somewhere in the ocean. Nobody knows exactly where. That's the point. French doctrine holds that an adversary can never be certain they've eliminated France's retaliatory capability because they can't find the submarine that will answer any first strike. France also operates nuclear-powered attack submarines, the Barracuda class, replacing older Rubis boats. These are hunter-killers, faster than ballistic submarines, quieter than most surface ships, and capable of launching Scalp naval cruise missiles at targets hundreds of kilometers inland from under the sea. Now layer Macron's March 2nd announcement on top of all this. What Macron announced on March 2nd was something France had resisted for decades. The new number will not be published. Macron specifically said France is ending transparency on warhead counts to reintroduce strategic uncertainty into deterrence calculations. 8 European allies, Germany, Britain, Poland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Greece, Sweden, Denmark, have agreed to participate in France's new Dissuasion Avancée framework. Nuclear-capable Rafales will deploy temporarily to Allied bases for exercises and signaling operations. Germany will participate in French nuclear exercises for the first time. The Gaullist tradition always insisted on complete national sovereignty over nuclear weapons. No sharing, no NATO-style arrangements, pure French control. What Macron announced preserves French command authority while giving European partners a stake in the deterrence posture around them. It's nuanced, it's ambitious, and it made Washington deeply uncomfortable, which Macron considers a feature rather than a bug. France doesn't just build things, it deploys them. French troops are currently operating across Lebanon under the UNIFIL peacekeeping mission, in Estonia under NATO's enhanced forward presence, in Djibouti guarding the choke point at the mouth of the Red Sea, and in various counter-terrorism roles across the Sahel and West Africa. The Sahel posture has been contracting. France's controversial Operation Barkhane ended, and several West African governments have asked French forces to leave. But Djibouti remains, and Djibouti matters enormously. Every ship transiting between the Indian Ocean and the Suez Canal passes within range of assets based there. France also maintains overseas territories that are legally French soil, not colonies actual France, scattered across the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, and the Pacific. No other European power has anything like it. The French Foreign Legion rotates through these territories on 4-month deployments. It's how France maintains genuine presence without permanent massive force concentrations. France has a problem that every analyst mentions and most scripts gloss over, so let's address it directly. The finances are a mess. France's deficit is running at 5% of GDP in 2026. Public debt is enormous. The government had to invoke a constitutional override mechanism just to pass the 2026 budget. Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu survived 2 no-confidence votes in a single evening to get military spending through parliament. Macron's ambition to reach 100 billion euros annually in defense spending faces the basic obstacle that France doesn't currently have 100 billion euros annually to spend on defense. This is a real tension. The vision is credible. The hardware is real. The fiscal arithmetic is a work in progress. The 2024 to 2030 military programming law allocates 413 billion euros over the period. The 2026 defense budget reached 57 billion euros. The roadmap to 64 billion euros by 2027 is set. Getting to 100 billion euros depends on economic growth, political continuity past the 2027 presidential election, and continued export revenues from Rafale sales, which admittedly are going well. But this is the honest version of France's military story: ambition at scale, execution under financial strain, which is, in fairness, how France has operated for most of its modern history and managed to remain one of the world's genuine military powers anyway. There's something almost characteristically French about building a nuclear carrier strike group while simultaneously arguing about the budget at midnight. France's 2026 geopolitical posture is something genuinely interesting to watch. In the Iran conflict, Macron declined to join the American-Israeli military operation, but he also refused to simply stand aside. When the crisis widened, he moved the Charles de Gaulle to the Eastern Mediterranean and framed it as protecting maritime routes and regional stability, not a combatant, not a bystander, a power broker, present, armed, and entirely on its own terms. Macron spent early 2026 positioning France as Europe's answer to American unpredictability, the power that shows up armed, independent, and unbothered. So here's where we land. France just told Washington no twice, and followed it up by moving a carrier battle group into an active war zone anyway. And Macron stood next to a ballistic missile submarine and told Europe, to be free, one needs to be feared. That's not a country that's lost the plot. That's a country that decided it was done being underestimated. If this breakdown changed how you see the European military balance, hit subscribe, because next we're going into a country whose military everyone assumes is a rebuilt relic, and whose actual capability in 2026 will genuinely surprise you. Stay sharp.